So Helluva Boss has been releasing shorts alongside the main series, and quite frankly gang, these things are stealing the goddamn show! For a while now, HB has been becoming less and less of an edgy comedy following the antics of screw-up assassins for hire from hell, and more of an angsty romantic dramedy, laser focused on Blitz's inner struggles, and in particular, the Stolitz will they won't they. It was made clear that the show was going to be heavy and emotional as early as the second episode, so I certainly wouldn't call it a bait and switch as some have. However, it perhaps does feel to me as if an important aspect of the show, the initial core of its premise, has been getting somewhat lost. And it's not so much that they can't manage, or even that they haven't already managed, to still deliver episodic installments once in a while. It's that this specific aspect of the characters' lives doesn't really fit into the narrative during the current storyline. Attempts at returning to comedic romps fall flat, simply by virtue of interfering with the flow of the story progression, or the sudden tonal shift. The heavy focus on Blitz and Stolas also means that the rest of the main cast is getting noticeably sidelined, and why that's a bit of an issue shouldn't call for elaboration. Though I do believe how much focus they take up is at least somewhat overblown. Like, you know, Fizz still gets his time to shine. Hell, Moxie can get his own episode. But the point is, he still can't get an arc. And don't get me wrong, I obviously really love what the show has become, and love it or hate it. It's an uncompromising sex-positive queer show with a focus on MLM relationships. That shit isn't coming anywhere else from the animation sphere for a long time. But the show is titled Helluva Boss, emphasis on boss. The fact that Imp getting hired by clients is solely this secondary thing just leaves this gaping hole in the show that needs to be filled. Cue the shorts. Only 3 in so far, and already they've breathed new life into the series and revitalized my love for it. It's been speculated that they've been directly addressing the specific criticisms lobbied at the show. The fandom, even ex-fans, have been eating this shit up as far as I can tell from my Twitter feed, and for good reason. They're fucking awesome. So let's take a closer look into why they're working so well. People have long been saying that they believe Millie gets the least focus among the imps, feeling as if she's just an extension of Moxie. While I don't think there's any malicious explanation behind why things panned out this way, more likely it being a case of not having an obvious angle as to how she relates to Blitz's storyline, I don't think those criticisms are completely unfounded. Episode 5 had us visit Millie's family early on, but the conflict of the episode was almost completely centered around Mox and Stryker, which felt like a somewhat wasted opportunity to explore her more. Sally May, on the other hand, may not be a main character, but she is an incredibly endearing one, in part thanks to her cool design, but in bigger part due to her iconic voice provided by Morgana Ignis. Notably, a trans woman voicing a trans woman character. It's rare trans rep is ever this casual across all fictional media, and it for sure would have been a waste if she just got like a few seconds of screen time. Of course, a lot of the trans community wanted to see her again, and some were even worried that she was just there to queerbait and sell merch. To be clear, there was no doubt Morgana's character would be returning, according to herself, but it had been a while, so the concern was understandable. Thankfully, they gracefully hit 2 birds with 1 brimstone with their first short Hell's Bells. This one actually premiered as an exclusive for a panel at Level Up Vegas. I mean, officially it wasn't exclusive, but it did drop on YouTube the next day, so I don't know if it was really that exclusive to begin with. Anyway, I have the least to say about this one, but it's some good shit nonetheless. Right off the bat, I'm digging the episode premise, with Sally dropping into town for a girls' night with Millie, swiftly followed by a montage consisting of an assortment of typical girl bonding activities, i.e. getting manicures, going to the arcade, and wailing on a creepy guy at the club. The scenes are cute, and the jokes are fun. About halfway through the runtime though, the mood goes from sweet to bittersweet, as Sally divulges the feelings of resentment and loneliness that the way things have ended up between her and her sister has left her with. Now, admittedly, everything pans out a bit by the books, which is to say, none of this is something you wouldn't have seen done before a few times elsewhere. They apologise to each other, vow to see each other more, and end the night on a lighter note. With that said, the execution of this concept more than warrants its existence. The discussion just has such a genuine feeling to it. The conflict between them feels natural, making total sense to the little we already know about these characters, and it's sold completely by the somber line delivery and strong character animation. Honestly though, I was just kind of vibing to the track during this scene. It's like some boppy but melancholy shit you'd find from Ivy and Sarashu in Steven Universe. All in all, just a fantastic first foot forward. These girls, Millie perhaps most importantly, finally have something the show can work with and explore more in the future. The second short, Mission Antarctica, opens with a shot of a case file, detailing a client's request for Imp to kill a man-eating beast that killed him, and he fears may also go after after his fellow Antarctica researchers. We then see Imp outside the research station, and honestly, the different scenery and thermal workwear alone is a nice change of pace from the series proper. The gang look fresh as fuck. From the jump, the episode does a great job at creating an atmosphere. Despite having a shorter runtime, it's willing to be a lot slower and quieter than Helluva typically allows itself to be. It pays attention to smaller details. We get close-up shots of the characters breathing, and even Millie is shaken up by the carnage that this thing has wrought. And the score, while not as much of a banger as the last installments, does a good job at building the tension here. As one might have suspected, the beast they initially encounter turns out to be a red herring, the real one being a bunch of penguins. And again, while this may be a tad predictable, the build-up makes it a genuinely satisfying reveal. From here on out, the episode goes a more comedic route, and honestly, this scene is some of the show's finest work. Look, I get that the culture right now is to mock any raunchy humour and go, haha, the joke is sex, so funny, to anything that dares tries it, right? But yes, the joke is sex, and it is so funny. Sue me. Seriously folks, this is some well executed, joke layered upon joke layered upon joke type shit. You have the contrast between this tense conflict and the ridiculous answer to it, Blitz helplessly licking away while getting berated by a frustrated Millie, and Moxie being a little freak. It's dismissive at best and intentionally obtuse at worst to act like there isn't any actual substance going on here. It's just solid character comedy, and it really does get an impressive amount of mileage from this simple little scenario. Before we move on, I will say that the initial bits of Blitz identifying that the penguins weren't friendly by the leader shouting slurs in Penguin is unexpected enough to be hilarious. The first time. However, as the penguin slurring went on, it did get a bit less funny. Like, why not push the joke further and have them say something even more unexpected? This would have been especially appreciated for the ending. Now, I'm obviously nitpicking a bit here, but they do need to be making the most out of every second of that short runtime. At the end of the day though, this little gripe doesn't detract from a brilliant short, and I'm happy to say they kept up the pace with the third installment, Weaboo-boo. So, honestly, I'll say right off the bat, this was my least favourite of the batch. That said, because the quality of these things has been so consistently good so far, I can't even say that's a bad thing. I love that we're still doing this case file format and seeing the gang on missions, and in fact, I probably have the most to say about this one. The main character, emberlynn, is sort of a whole lot to unpack. On one hand, she's a light-hearted caricature of the horny, monster-fucking side of the show's fanbase. On the other hand, she very well may represent series creator Viv as a teen. And on the other hand, she's just some cringy yet cute girl whose direct influence isn't of much importance. You probably know of, or have been, or even are this person, and that's all the context you need. I'll be blunt, it sort of does the short a disservice to get too wrapped up into the very negligible meta aspects of it. The laughs here are 99% coming from cringe comedy and visual gags. And that said, this video wouldn't feel complete if I didn't touch upon it, at least partially. So here we go. That caricature of the fans' interpretation should be pretty self-explanatory, I'd hope. But what does this girl have to do with Vivian herself? Well, it's the case files text that may give it away. Long story short, Viv has a messy online footprint from when she was a kid, namely some wild shipping fan art. You'd be surprised how much of a norm this is for cartoon creators, and it's still brought up today to defame her character. It's easy to see how this could be perceived as a shot taken at them, but essentially, all this thing is doing is mocking how folks would get up in arms about shipping drama, only hyperbolically suggesting that someone would put a hit on someone else if they ship something they viewed as morally objectionable, regardless of whether or not it actually is. Now, I won't speak for anything else she's been accused of doing, or defend or attack any specific ships, but I think it's a vague enough idea that the context that it's meant to be Viv doesn't change the joke. Oh, and FYI, this was written by someone called Adam Nealon, so the petty series creator accusations ain't really hitting for this one. Now onto the fun stuff. As I'd briefly touched upon before that digression, the animation does an incredible amount of heavy lifting here. The simple concept of a horny girl turning a demon assassination into something it isn't is just a vehicle for strong posing and gorgeous expression work, terrific, believably cringy voice acting, and one of the cutest designs the series has to offer. You know, which isn't to undersell the dialogue, which feels written by someone who really understands the type of person they're having fun with here.
Demon! Here to steal a little kitten like me? forced to be part of your demonic harem plushes.
As for why it's not my favourite, there's two main reasons. The first being that it's somewhat of a one-trick pony. Which is to say, there's not as much going on as in the others. They do a lot with it, but the core of the joke stays the same throughout. The second being that I would prefer they do anything but a solo Blitz story for these things, but it is what it is, and for what it is, they did a superb job. And hey, it's still doing what the series isn't, and having Imp go out on missions. It's inherently healthy for the show. I don't know how to end this one. I hope you enjoyed this video essay, which was actually just 3 mini reviews in a trench coat. Sorry for dying.
え